Hey, if you're new to my channel, then consider liking and subscribing. It would really mean a lot to me, and honestly, it'd make my day. If you already did, thank you so much. Oh, and by the way, if you like listening to fan fiction, check out my other channel. The link's in the description.
Why being caught in a causal loop is best avoided, by LittleRuky. The Straw Hats know it's not in Luffy's nature to turn down an adventure. But the shady man offering it? Yeah, that should have raised a few red flags. Now they're stranded in the Void Century, with only Robin as a makeshift guide, and their only means of communication. That, maybe, they can handle. But getting caught up in a global-scale military conflict that shapes the course of history? Yeah, that's where Nami draws the line. Big shout-out to the warlords of this channel: Craig Twitchell, Throat Punch, Rodarius Jones, Native Warrior, Claude Lifrace, Neo Esker 23, Derek Dowdy, Zazu Sayaz, Abdul Rauf Ali, N3WT, What_if_Lord, Black Money _Young Leon, Garrick Russell, Case Clark, KSGPL4YZ, and Brian McKenzie. You know who you are. Want to stand among legends? Join the channel membership and show your support. Adios.
Land ho! The captain's head snaps up immediately from the process of devouring his new acquisition, a piece of meat fresh from Sanji's frying pan. He has only been so lucky to snatch it because Nami was distracting the cook with enough of her feminine charms. It enabled Luffy to be able to sneak inside and steal one, lovely and succulent, though still partially raw piece of meat. Still, he has his doubts on whether Sanji has let him off the hook this time around or the blonde was really that distracted by the sight of Nami in a semi-transparent top. Either way, he has been content with munching on it with the usual fervor in the face of such an early meal until Zoro's shout caused an outbreak of adrenaline and thirst for adventure to surge through his veins. What island is that? Nami. Chopper's head pokes curiously from the doorway of the infirmary. Luffy's eyes trail over to the orange-haired woman and find her leaning against the railing with an unusually confused frown on her face. While it does appear on the map I stole the other day, the navigator begins slowly, eyes never leaving the growing mass of land splayed in front of her. It doesn't really have a name. So I thought it might not be here at all, just a paper island or something. She trails off uncertainly. What's that? Luffy pipes up from his place on the swing. An island made of paper. Nami points a manicured finger down at the large canopy spread over 3 barrels. On big-scale maps such as this one, the cartographers invent them to avoid others making a copy off of it and getting away with it. She pinches the bridge of her nose at the lost expression on her captain's face. It's like a signature. Oh, so that's what it was. So let's go to the signature island then. The pirate captain jumps off the wooden seat and throws his arms in the air in his usual ready-for-trouble style. You sure it doesn't have a name? Zoro asks from up above as he leisurely makes his way toward the grassy deck, leaving to Usopp the supervision of their last few miles until they get near enough to the shore. Nami feels the beginning of an eye twitch, but she struggles to answer as calmly as possible. Yes, very. Then we'll find it out when we arrive. The swordsman sighs tiredly and drops down near the railing for a quick nap. I suppose research is in order? The navigator jumps slightly at the voice coming from the bodiless mouth somehow attached to her shoulder, but smiles nonetheless. I guess so. She can imagine the rare, excited grin on the other woman's face. It's kinda, a pregnant pause, deserted, you know? Usopp glances at the desolate street with desperation and dread building up inside his chest. He can already feel his invented sickness acting up, not to mention the overwhelming feeling of pressure pushing down on his shoulders. It's like he is suddenly carrying 1,000 invisible kilos just by smelling the slightly musty air that has a tang of copper. It smells nothing but dead bodies on their hands, he's sure. The dust scratches his face rather painfully and he is sure that 2 more steps will send enough vibrations through the earth to bring down one of the many shabby wooden houses lining the street on both sides. There sure isn't anyone around. Robin also remarks, looking contrastingly unconcerned and at ease. She slides one finger over a decaying advertisement board that groans under the soft pressure of her touch. We should find a bar. This is like the classical horror story, Guys. The sniper whispers fearfully, trying in vain to attract his friend's attention, but only succeeding in scaring Chopper and Brook. And I don't think a bar will hold anything else other than dead bodies. Are you sure it was fine leaving the Sunny all alone, bro? Frankie shouts from the back of the group, his posture predictably tense in light of the constant worry of leaving his beloved ship all alone in that desolate port. These heinous thoughts circle through his head without respite and Frankie hates it. Yep. Luffy grins widely, stepping over the carcass of a dead animal a little too nonchalantly for the crew's overstressed sniper. Don't worry, Sunny will be fine. We should have fun, too. How? When there's no bar anywhere in this crap city? Zoro grumbles, his face a few shades darker because of the aforementioned fact. We better find some dead people at least. Sanji snorts in contempt. Serves you right. And don't go around throwing words like that or we're going to have to deal with Usopp's mumbles all the way through. I believe we should be able to find one, Zoro-san. Brook breaks in before anyone else can express their disappointment at the dilapidated state of their new discovery or the very real possibility that a mountain of corpses is waiting for them. Or, hell, even start a fight. A bony finger points down the street. Nami squints to make out exactly what their musician is showing them. That's, her eyes wide and already livelier than a moment before. She double-checks the rectangle hanging on the wall of a house, swinging in the passing breeze with a furious series of crick-cracks. Finally, the green-haired swordsman almost throws his hands up in the air as he resolutely marches down the street. Luffy and Usopp jog to catch up with him with the others closely following behind. This doesn't look like much, Usopp whispers as he hears the door creak closed behind them. When his eyes finally adjust, he takes in the overly shadowy room that exudes a foul odor of alcohol that no doubt permeates everything from the equally shabby interior and its filthy-looking occupants seated around a few low tables. The wooden bar is cracked and torn in a few places and the bottles aligned behind on bended shelves are half buried under a mound of dust and trash. The liquids inside don't look all that inviting either. Hey, Zoro. Luffy's voice seems too loud in the ultra-silence and it's almost eerie under the distrustful gazes of the few patrons. Is this a bar? His voice gets higher by the end, as if intimidated of the glares thrown his way. Zoro grunts something unintelligible and plops down in a seat at the bar, already in the middle of ordering something. It seems that their swordsman doesn't mind the unusual establishment that exceeded even the pirate bars they usually frequent. The door swings open again to reveal the way more inviting outside and closes just as quietly and solemnly as during their entrance. What is this? Nami's eyes are unfocused as they move frantically, raking in the room at large while her nose slightly scrunches up reflexively in distaste. I think this is a good place to find some answers. Robin nods resolutely, more to herself. A couple of patrons shift in their seats in a familiar way that reminds her of the warning currents before a fight for territory would ensue. She has seen it all so many times before, it feels almost ordinary in this unordinary piece of land they just stumbled upon. Here, Chopper's voice is as broken as Usopp's heart. I doubt it, Robin. Nami begins quickly with determination, already alarmed by the multitude of glares and suspicious stares pointed in their direction full of something bad and something worse that it gives her goosebumps just standing in their wake. We should. You oughta listen to her, suddenly and without preamble as it usually happens in such circumstances and places of gathering. Someone, or God forbid something, erupts from a table next to a roughly boarded up window that still has a few traces of glass shards hanging limply from its termite-eaten frame. The voice is atypically high and light for someone who'd usually be found in this kind of place and certainly misplaced the age the younglings considered the figure to have. Luffy looks at his battle-ready companions with amusement and ignores his mounting uncertainty. They are sometimes such scared cats. You got some information for us then, old man? The pirate captain lets his easygoing grin take the lead and proceeds to walk towards the table dress from his friends to not do that. He can deal with whatever will arise and besides, they were only a few feet away from him. The man at the table grins widely. It is the only thing not shadowed by the mainstream black hood draped over his head. His overall appearance shifts to something slightly more savage, though, as he stands there hunched over a table full of glasses and tall towers of food leftovers. Sure I have. His tone is more than delighted. I heard you kids want to go on a grand adventure. Against Nami's rapidly growing feeling of fear, Luffy simply beams and almost jumps on the table in his hurry to make the man spill the beans. Anyone who offers an adventure is less of a villain in his books. Hell, yeah. The sparkle in Luffy's eyes brings a foreboding sense of alarm even to the most clueless crewmate. What's it about? You know what, guys? I don't think we should. Usopp trails off as his eyes dart between the duo at the corner table and Zoro. The swordsman is now approaching them with feline grace that undermines a dangerous aura that usually serves to make people forcibly back down. Hooded man simply doesn't seem to get the message. Oh, I've got a special one just for YOU. Alright now, this is getting super creepy, and this is not even that time of the year yet, Frankie says over Usopp's garbled sentence. What can you even offer in this shit-filled hole of a place? Zoro growls with eyes too lucid for someone who has probably drunk 2 bottles of stale liquor in quick succession just under a minute ago. Hey, no time. What did y'all say, Captain? Ready to bring it up a notch? Sanji's hands move to get Robin and Nami out of the way first, but he is a few seconds too slow. Their clueless captain shouts, "Yes," way before the man has fully finished what he has to say, and he curses that son of a bitch for being in so much damn hurry and never taking the time to listen to sense first. Danger always rides with them because of this, and the cook realizes with a horrifying chill that the rest of them are slowly taking after Luffy in this aspect. They are 9, though, so an old man shouldn't be such a big deal. Zoro is nearest and he can easily deal with him. It isn't like the stupid moss head hasn't dealt with things like this before. Shady, obscure drunks like this old man that take a sudden and sick interest in their captain are few and far between, but always offering adventures of all kinds that Luffy never has to know about. But the rest of them have been informed about it in some instances, when one of them has really overstepped it and Zoro's temper had reached a boiling point Sunny's boiler would be jealous of. Sanji knows the guy keeps locked and buried the kind of unhealthy rage that comes with primal instincts, but he is certain that Zoro has to struggle to keep it at bay sometimes. So he is glad that after weeks on end of drifting and navigating the ocean, these poor saps come unabashed to address them, because this is one effective way to let him explode in their world. The opinion of those who really matter, like Nami and Chopper and Luffy, will remain perfectly intact. Because what is the world without a couple of suicidal S-bags that dare bring up the Paramount War or a city of gold when Sanji knows there is one where they are heading to anyway? They just have to wait a damn bit more for their captain to be ready for Raftel, that's all. This is getting old, Sanji mutters when he feels the lit cigarette slip from between his lips. Zoro's form minus his odd hair is obscured now by a strange beam of light that comes from something the man is holding, and he realizes with mind-numbing certainty that Luffy is nowhere now. He tightens his grip on Nami and Robin and feels both respond in turn, and he only has time to hope that the cigarette will light this shack on fire before he finds that they are shrouded in a sea of black with only the vivid, stark, white image of that obnoxious and, dare he say, manic grin behind his possibly closed eyelids. After that, everything fades away from him. Usopp jumps up almost as soon as he gets some feeling back in his brain and limbs. His head moves left and right rapidly, eyes trying to focus on his surroundings, but mostly coming up foggy. The sniper stops when the first signs of vertigo and the pulsing of a headache have become simply impossible to ignore anymore, and simply lays sprawled on the grass, trying to clear his mind. They've been in some possible hell, a bare nothingness that had him suffocating way before he actually registered that he couldn't see and feel anything. Way before he had even set foot into it. Around the time he had been complaining, which was most of the time. But it was mostly because he felt like that island was going to drain him of every speck of life he had, and his instincts never ceased screaming to duck, run and kill. The grass tickles his ears and he opens his eyes to a clear blue that scars his retinas before his crumpled brain figures it out. Grass? The long-nosed pirate shrieks, definitely not giving a damn about his health this time around as he jumps upright and takes a few cautious steps backwards. Sharp eyes finally find more than a sea of green color around him. And he knows that he is definitely in a forest. A damn big forest with all kinds of plant life that could have easily fooled him into believing that he is back on the Boeing archipelago. But he has enough mind left to analyze the cold, hard facts. For one, the smell and sounds of the jungle are slightly different than he is used to, not to mention that he would have been wild animal food by now had he laid down there for more than 2 hours in that unmerciful jungle. So it is entirely possible that this isn't that kind of raw wilderness, or he is simply somewhere the animals would stay clear of. Something, or someone, like a settlement. The whisper carries on with the breeze, and Usopp has to put a mental stop to the thought before he starts analyzing the other possibility. The dark, bloody lair of an equally horrifying monster. But at another look, it isn't, and he is simply surrounded by trees. Swaying trees with large crowns and a minimal amount of birds flying in and out of them. He can barely hear their song, as if the whole forest is holding its breath. So, the slight echo gives him the creeps, but he has to pretend to be sane somehow, so he continues, "This smell. It is definitely different, but at the same time familiar, like he's smelled it for such a long time." Usopp pauses as his mind finally processes the thought and draws to the shameful conclusion that the mystery smell, damn, this sounds so Luffy-like, even inside his head, is, in fact, salt. More specifically, sea salt. And yes, he's been smelling the damn thing for quite a long time now in his otherwise relatively short pirating career. Damn, I've been so focused on the Boeing archipelago that I forgot to pay attention to the smell. Usopp slaps his forehead in defeat and wills his leaden feet to move towards the source of the breeze. He now knows why the smell is different from the Boeing jungle, too. Due to the dense vegetation and him training as near the center of the island as he possibly could and not fall into the mouth of the carnivorous plant that made up the body of the island itself, this kind of smell barely passed through, so his mind did not associate it with the carnivorous island to begin with. Where could the others be, though? The words barely escape his mouth before he finds himself stepping through the thick line of trees and into a completely different place. It is like one of those vast plains he sometimes reads about in one of the books he likes to sneak from the library. But he can still spot the ocean above the tall blades of green and small bushes scattered all over. 3 vertical stripes of gray cut through the darker hue of blue, and he knows he has hit the jackpot. If there is a village, then it means that there is food, which in turn means that meat is definitely part of the menu. And where meat is, Heim's over, with his stomach, mind and appetite. Nami knew that they are in big trouble the moment she first climbed over that messily built fence these people like to call protection. The houses, oh, don't get her started. No matter how unkempt they could get or how messy the villagers could ever be, they are built with stone and straws. There are no definite windows besides small cuts with colorful glass attached when the molten earth had still been liquefied, and nothing else attested that living in one of these is at the very least comfortable. But the real problem, and she has kept the complaints to a minimum until now, is that they are as equally strangely shaped too. As if they have melted off in some bizarre heat. 2 steps in and she was already the definite outsider with her choice of clothing, and the villagers weren't making it any easier with all their staring. Not being one to be self-conscious in such situations, Nami had squared her shoulders and decided to let them be. She had more important things to take care of, like finding some clues about their location and possibly a restaurant. Nami inwardly hopes these tribals, or whatever they are supposed to be, have one at least, and not for the first time thinks that Robin will certainly be delighted to have found such a secluded and untouched culture. Whatever this culture with a funny style of building houses is. The navigator grits her teeth as she tries to keep her shaking knees steady, hoping that the wave of whatever is assaulting her will pass already. It is bad already that she is the bad man here. She doesn't need to let herself look weak. That will give them the opening they need and an advantage, and Nami knows from hard-earned experience that to survive in the world of pirates there is no place for those weak and quaking with fear. Her honey gaze wanders over to the side and she tries not to stare at the minimally dressed women who seem to be keen on wearing a straw skirt and a mixture of leaves and leather bound together over their breasts. Thankfully, the males are infinitely more dressed and tattooed, something that makes Nami wearier over her seemingly leisure walk. Most aren't regarding her in a friendly manner, but at least they aren't outright attacking her. Glares she can deal with. At least she is somehow blending in with only her bra as a top, but curses her hesitation for putting on a skirt that morning instead of her jeans. Then her problems would have been half cut. Most importantly now, she has to find the place from where that infernal rhythm of a melody is coming from. She doesn't think that these people were artistic. Just look at those houses. But the song sounds too broken and off-key to even be considered an attempt. So this means that they didn't have guitars here. Smiling to herself, Nami follows the trail of random sounds to its core. She finds it in the form of her crewmate laying on the ground unmoving while the villagers gathered around his body prod gleefully at the strange instrument with wonder worthy of little kids. Her feet stop as soon as the points of her flats touch Brooke's side and she stares in confusion for a minute before she realizes that, yes, as much alive as he seemed to her now, Brooke is still a skeleton. So surely walking around in a primordial village where death is the final door will no doubt land him in more trouble than it was worth. Nodding at the good conduit, the navigator steps forward. She is planning to at least save her friend's possessions from the overly curious people. "He's with me, don't worry." Her words are meant to be reassuring, but all she gets in return are suspicious and guarded glares. At least they let go of Brooke's guitar. Nami lifts her hands up in a gesture of peace, the smile slowly sliding off her face as helplessness makes its way through. Her gaze drops to her cleam attacked, reassuringly strapped to her thigh, before lifting up toward a group of approaching men. They brandish their long spears in a pointedly warning manner at her and Nami feels sweat gather on her forehead. She doesn't have the time or inspiration to plan an escape route, but she is pretty sure there won't be one. These locals don't seem to mind making the women or children fight. Her brow furrows when the one standing at the front of the group starts shouting at her in gibberish. She has never heard this kind of language before. It sounds broken, though somehow still melodic. Maybe it is a dialect. A dialect of what, exactly? The man starts gesturing wildly and the orange-haired woman gulps when the group starts advancing from all sides. Well, that was it for playing it safely, she concludes and draws her weapon, preparing to pump the heat and cool balls into the atmosphere. "May I be of service, Nami-san?" The navigator's eyes grow wide at the sight of the musician, keeping a tight clutch on 4 struggling tribals. Disembodied arms suddenly burst from the ground like flowers of hope and entrap the other 5. Nami grins when her surroundings gradually descend into an incomprehensible madness, but she is too busy searching for Robin to mind it much. "I'm here." The black-haired woman steps away from her hiding spot behind a half-fallen house. Her face is tight and Nami takes it as a sure sign that this situation is not at all resolved even if they've somehow managed to overpower the gibbering creeps. "Robin." Either way, she is relieved to see her friends. "Did you find the others?" The archaeologist nods gravely. "I have. Come with me. You're the last ones to arrive." One corner of her mouth lifts as she watches Brooks struggles to recuperate his guitar from the tribe's people. "Where are we, Robin?" Nami fearfully whispers, already too afraid of the answer to bother helping their bony crewmate. "If my assumptions are correct, then in another place and time altogether. Our dear sniper almost had a mental breakdown because of this. So I suggest we return to the meeting point before any explanation is to commence." Robin smiles without any warmth or reassurance, more of a reflex really, and waves a hand in Brooks' direction, gesturing him to follow them. She finally grimaces. It will be a little hard to digest. Nami's stomach plummets. "So I suppose they were only trying to bring Nami-san here?" Brooke asks as he seats himself down on the carpet-covered ground of the small hut they have found the rest of their friends stuck into. More like stashed, really. He is not at all surprised to see Luffy munching on a piece of half-cooked meat, but their navigator made sure to scold the raven-haired pirate for even trying to act in character in such a precarious situation. Though the musician assumes it is her way of dealing with everything she has seen until now. He is surely still digesting it, but is ironically, tremendously curious at the same time to hear all about it. And, dare he say it, even inside his empty skull with Nami still in the room, all but ready for whatever adventure that shady man back at the bar has promised them. "We can very well be on the same island, but another part of it," Sanji offers, inhaling greedily from a cigarette. He looks worse for the wear with twigs and grass in his hair and dirt all over his suit. "Maybe we have encountered the wrong culture." "Yes, the culture where your ass will be beaten by the same women you so gleefully ogle." Zoro cackles haughtily, clearly enjoying every minute of the cook's misery. "I must say, I kinda like them." "You damned algae brain shouldn't. Would you shut it up already?" Nami glares at the bickering duo even though they've barely said a third of their usual snark before intervention should be required. Her arms tighten around her quivering form and she looks in desperate need of a calming cup of tea. Usopp places a reassuring hand on her shoulder, not looking any better, but certainly able to handle the situation. Now, it didn't help that he has been the second one to arrive after Robin. Thankfully, the woman was able to convince the village leader that they were not in any way a threat and know how she managed that when they spoke a completely different language. Maybe it's a dialect? Chopper tries to take the smoother road. Come on buddy, you understand any of it? Usopp finds himself asking, throwing a curious glance at the reindeer. To his discouragement, his friend only looks down and shakes his head. The rest of their friends don't bother to launch any helpful comments to that. Then it's not animal. The sniper sighs and pinches the bridge of his nose. He looks over to Robin. Her expression shuddered and realizes that their archaeologist knows more than she lets on. You understand any of it, Robin? He repeats his question a second time. Robin startles from her thoughts and observes the tightly packed group with the sort of elusive silence that signals bad news. The sad smile she allows to melt her earlier frown as the cross on their dug grave. No, but you are right, Usopp. It is a dialect. The sniper blinks in surprise at the information. You are never going to believe where we are. How are you so sure we are where you think we are? Usopp immediately counters, feeling a new sickness assault him. I don't doubt Miss Historian, but Frankie trails off, not sure what to present in hopes of bringing their spirits up. So where are we? Luffy quips from behind the many clay plates stacked in front of him. Usopp eyes him with mounting jealousy. Future or another planet? This is not funny, Luffy, Chopper exclaims, horrified as his captain should be. Past actually. Robin's answer makes Nami groan and Usopp is already in the midst of developing the possible symptoms his new sickness is capable of. Oh. Luffy almost looks disappointed. How far then? You don't look half remorseful for getting us in this shit. You selfish asshole. Sanji explodes, his hands clenching and unclenching in the act of strangling air. Go cry about it somewhere else, Swirly. Zoro grumbles, moving away from the blonde pointedly. Sanji clicks his tongue and leans back on the hard wall, arms crossed over his chest in silent mutiny. Isn't it bad, though? Frankie interrupts before Robin can answer. I mean, we could be changing something. That's the last of our problems. The archaeologist answers easily. When I arrived here, I didn't know what to make of this either. This language. She explains patiently. But after walking around for a bit, I did find a single stone embed with very familiar characters. And then I started to realize that this is really the place. That man. Robin trails off, her narrowed eyes flashing with frustration. I don't know what he wants from us. A small, brown notebook is lifted into the tense, stale air and everyone understands what character she is referring to. You're saying that these people speak the ancient language, Brook concludes, suddenly breathless even though he doesn't have any lungs. His shoulders hunch along with the rest of his friends as the true weight of the situation finally descends upon them. Yes, but even though I can read it, the language they speak doesn't make any sense to me either. Only after I found the tablet and started paying attention, but it's hard making sense of it. Robin nibbles at her lower lip with worry. So that's why you think it's a dialect? Usopp's eyes widen at the realization. The historian nods. I believe so. This village is small and it does look remote enough, so I did not concern myself with understanding everything. I assume that the language written on the poneglyphs is the grammatical one. So how did you make the village leader understand you, then? Nami inquires, doubtful and still fearing for their future, as strange as it sounds. I used the written language. He knows how to read and then I found out that he knew some of our words as well, so we managed to understand each other all right. Robin inclines her head from left to right. I hope. Chopper and Frankie deflate at the last part. What are we going to do? Usopp is the one to pose the question after another prolonged silence. The others sure don't look like they understand us. This communication barrier is just too tough. Stay here and figure out a way to go back. Nami cries out in a no-nonsense tone to the sniper's question. If even one guy knows some words, then we'll have to make it work and go back. Of course not. Luffy bursts back, suddenly indignant. He stands up, causing the plates gathered at his feet to clatter. We're going on the adventure that old man was talking about. We don't even know what that fucking creep wanted in the first place. Sanji raises his voice accordingly. And where are we even going? Frankie asks breezily. We don't know how the world is right now and we don't even have the Sunny with us. The cyborg sniffs, the corners of his eyes already wet. His worry for the ship has been exchanged with outright panic at the thought of Sunny being left in that miserable port all alone on that island full of degenerates. Exactly, Nami nods resolutely. I don't know what the deal is with these people, but we should use every moment we have to try and figure out a way back. Hell, no, we're leaving this place. Zoro interrupts and frowns when his declaration is met with glares from the unwilling ones. We're never going to be able to find anything worthwhile in this dump. Luffy grins through his freshly started meal. A disturbing image indeed. That's right, we gotta take a tour around. With what? Usopp insists, though a plan is already forming inside his mind by the time Luffy finishes chewing and stops long enough to start pouting. He makes a mental note to watch out for a new wave of nonsensical violence that will inevitably result in the near future, judging by Zoro's thunderous expression. Maybe make sure that this time Chopper won't be almost able to find out about it. They don't need that kind of scare again. I will ask the village leader. Robin ends their argument swiftly. Now there's only the problem of finding a way out of this place. I'm afraid you will not be able to leave for the capital without a proper boat. No boat, no leave. Robin nods at the scratched message and short words as she scribbles down something in return. Where can we have one? The old man shakes his head, making the many trinkets he is wearing jingle along with the movement. Nami eyes the tattooed, feather-covered man in apprehension and wonders silently if this man can really understand what they are saying. And if so, why he would help strange people such as them. Even by normal standards, the Straw Hat Pirates are out of the grid of weirdness. Must come from capital. The navigator appreciates that he is at least trying. Robin purses her lips at the words. When? The village leader takes a while to answer, choosing to consult with a few younger men standing respectfully behind him. When he finally starts scribbling, Robin tries hard to contain her anxious shifting from foot to foot and not allow her impatience show through. We hope that next week at the latest. The archaeologist squints at the last word, but she nods again nevertheless. He says that we'll have to wait a week for a boat from the capital to come pick us up. She announces, mildly annoyed herself at the unfavorable news. Just when they have all decided to go along with Luffy's plan and take a look at this world, this happens. And now they are stuck here waiting and hoping. Can't they give us a boat? Usopp tries to reason with the older man, but the only thing he gets is a sharp shake of the head and a warning glare from the other. The sniper sighs. Or maybe a map or something. Nami also urges her friend to ask more. Knowing it was better they are aware of this, Robin writes eagerly on a fresh page of her notebook. Can we have a boat from you? The villager leader's eyebrows shoot up in obvious surprise. We have only small ones. Do you know where to go if we give you one? They only have small ones, Robin translates absently, ignoring the unintelligible question that follows in favor of pen in their list. Map? None. Well? Sanji prods, already anticipating the answer. They cannot give us a boat, and without it I doubt that we would not sink even with Nami's amazing skills. Much less find the capital of this place. The archaeologist sighs and thanks the old man verbally. You stay. For now. Robin smiles. Thank you. We should learn more about them then. Brook offers his input, startling the villagers gathered around. Luffy snickers at their apprehensive faces. Sounds good. If the old man lets us stay, we'll stay. The Ravenhead grins widely in the leader's direction and is hesitantly sent one in return. The pirate captain takes it as a positive sign and is out of the door of the small hut in seconds. I guess someone needs to keep an eye on him. Usopp scratches the back of his head as he turns on his heels, already resigned to his fate as their captain's babysitter. 2 days later. Thank you for the clothing. The old man smiles at the writing and shakes his head. He mumbles something in that language of his that Nami cannot make any sense of, but remains silent and reserved overall. Ever since their arrival, the villagers have treated them better than what they expected of uncivilized, by their standards, people. They allowed them to explore the settlement and its surroundings and also offered them a deformed hut to sleep in. Which wasn't such an amazing experience with Zoro's constant snoring, Luffy's random limb flailing or Sanji's perverted dreams that were constantly expressed through barely incoherent mumbles during his sleep. And then there was the food. Sweet lord, their meals were divided between two extremes, with Sanji stuck right in the middle and suffering from severe cooking deprivation. He was not allowed by the local cooks to touch anything in the rudimental kitchen. They were preparing meals in for the whole village. But the blonde had snuck up to watch and maybe steal some recipes. Bottom line was, the food was either too undercooked for anyone but Luffy's taste, which seemed to be traditional in overcast and rainy days, or it was on a whole new level of exotic goodness in sunny ones. Nami wonders how a war hasn't started between their captain and the other starving folks at mealtime. Also, now they have been given clothes, tribal clothes for tribe people, but a fresh change of clothes nonetheless, which is a real God-sent mercy. On her part, Nami has kept her flowery bra on and only exchanged her jeans for a traditional dress. As Robin has put it, the tribe women did not hesitate in braiding and adorning her hair with flowers. Robin has received the same treatment, but the older woman has chosen not to change out of her short jacket and long skirt. What should we do now? Chopper asks from his spot on the grass. Next to the reindeer, Usopp and Luffy are lying on the ground, staring at the clouds passing by with a mixture of boredom and wistfulness. They both have straw coats over their normal clothes that are a little too thick for this warm weather. Oh my, only 2 days and you're already bored? Robin gazes at the two with mounting amusement. This looks super on me. Frankie's shout causes a flock of birds to fly out of a nearby tree. The cyborg twists around to observe his new straw coat better. Indeed, we are very fashionable, Brook readily agrees, patting his feather-decorated hat. Now we really are the Straw Hat Pirates, yo-ho-ho. Luffy snickers at the pun while Nami can't help but roll her eyes. Oi, Luffy, you took a look at the island already? Zoro lays down in front of his captain's sprawling limbs, having a little difficulty with the mountain of straws on his back. Nope. We only got to the end of the forest. The rubber man answers easily, gaze still pinned to the sky. The green-haired man lifts an eyebrow. And what did you find on the other side? Nothing. Usopp groans, turning on his side to face the swordsman. There is only a small plain bare of any trees before a forest starts up again. There are a few mountains in the distance, but that's as far as I could make out. And then we found a river somewhere in there too, when we were coming back. Nami frowns as she takes in the towering trees circling them. Huh, that's unusual for an island. I'm starting to have my doubts that this is an island at all. Robin sighs despondently, even her usual confidence strangely low in the tone of her voice. Her fingers comb through her hair as she continues leafing through the small notebook propped on her knees. Then are we on the red line or what? Zoro looks at her expectantly, but the archaeologist simply shrugs, her attention never straying away from her studies. Great, no map, no idea where we are, and this might not be even an island. Nami throws her hands up in the air, exasperated. This just keeps getting better and better. Don't worry, Nami Swan. I will find a way out of this creepy-ass place. Sanji hastens to reassure her, even though the words sounded all but that even to his own ears. A distinguishable set of strange sounds alert the pirates of new visitors. Robin glances up to see a mixed group of men and women, some of them with kids, watching them back carefully but not unkindly. They seem to be debating something amongst themselves before one with a snake tattoo steps away from the crowd. Would you like to know more about our language? Learn? Surprise courses through her, but she is not about to decline a free lesson on the ancient language of the Void Century. Especially since it is very much confirmed that they have ended up here and still have to survive first before even hoping to find a way to get back. The archaeologist nods once in his direction before she turns to address her companions. Even though they must have made sense of the situation from the two broken, familiar words, they wish to teach us their language. Predictably, Luffy is the first one to jump at the suggestion, happy and glad to have finally found something to do. Usopp is equally as eager, and Robin knows that the sniper has a certain affinity to learning languages that no one, much less Usopp, knows about. She found out about it the day after she had accidentally left her notebook with annotations on the ancient language on the galley's table one night. She had come back for it the next morning to find Usopp already in the middle of figuring out how to build a simple sentence. Since then, she had encouraged him in this prospect, but he seemed to shy away every time. But now it is a golden opportunity to learn something very useful, dialect or not, and she is definitely part of the willing group. Seeing their overall positive attitude, the villagers approach the group devoid of any of the earlier suspicion and reservation. They divide themselves amongst them into small factions in order to start the language lessons, though Robin isn't sure how everything is supposed to go. Sanji takes one long look at the enthusiasm Chopper, Usopp, Luffy and Robin Schwan are exuding, then glances away at the sound of Nami Swans's dejected sigh to Marimo's jungle-worthy grunt and growls under his breath. He so isn't in the mood. It would have been better to just be able to slouch off and not have to be in anyone's company, but that is impossible now. It will be a long week. Let's get super, beginning right about now. Surprised squeals and shouts accompany Frankie's declaration before the musical tunes of Brooke's guitar overshadow them in volume. Robin. At the sound of her name, the archaeologist looks up from her chat with the village woman. She spots the leader of the settlement as he somberly makes his way towards her. More out of reflex gained from years of experience, the black-haired woman does a quick sweep of her surroundings, locating each of her friends. But she sees only Zoro and Nami remained after they finished their meal. The swordsman is taking one of his usual naps on a large pile of dried grass, while the orange-haired woman is using her drawing skills to entertain a group of little Chaland first mate have been able to catch up on the language pretty fast. Which is one big surprise in the green-haired man's case. Usopp didn't let her down this time either. The sniper is already able to converse in short sentences with the natives, and it is clear that he likes to learn new words. The others aren't doing half bad, but they still have trouble keeping Luffy in place long enough to learn something else besides meat and fun. He actually wanted to know adventure. But even Robin had trouble describing the word to the villagers since it isn't one she sees often, and the books that contain such details remain on the sunny back in their time. Yes. The old man smiles, now accustomed to the strange bunch that Hall literally stumbled on his village's doorstep just 6 days ago. A ship from the capital's been spotted. The men called it over, so you'll be able to leave. Ship, leave, soon. The archaeologist purses her lips but nods, returning his smile with a grateful one of her own. She still hasn't managed to catch everything the man has said, but she got the main idea. Understand. Will tell my friends. Thank you. The leader inclines his head in acknowledgement and retraces his steps back through the village proper. Nami, we have to. Yeah, we heard him. Or at least, tried to. She pouts. That guy speaks so damn fast. The ginger-haired woman hums happily as she finishes her latest piece of art on the ground and stands up, dusting her reclaimed jeans. She grins widely, and Robin's mind amusedly remembers the circus yesterday when Nami barely managed to save her pants from the clutches of the village women by talking and gesturing widely an array of cuss words and threats so typical of her. But she has been as happy as a 5-year-old that had managed to do an errand on her own, and Robin knows that and opts instead to jut a thumb over her shoulder in the direction the swordsman has supposedly been sleeping in, only now it is deserted. I see that Zoro's taking care of it. Ah, the navigator sighs as she catches up with her friend. I'm dying to know more about this world. At least now. There is the unspoken gratitude of late nights filled with homesick tears in a time the world isn't been kind to them. But it is still home. Sunny is home, and they've abandoned her there. Me too. The black-haired woman agrees easily. She has been preparing herself for this, knows that they have to get out of here if only to catch a glimpse of an extinct point in time. Even so, her eyes narrow on the barely noticeable speck on the horizon. I cannot help but think that being sent here is more than just for laughs. Nami hugs herself, does not want to think about what that super creep wanted with them. She has kicked herself over it too many times already to feel anything but a pang of dull pain where the wound still aches. She steels herself anyway and lets her eyes narrow with renewed challenge. Yeah, I suppose so. Nami. Robin. Where are they? Luffy's shouts echoes over the shoreline and makes way for a consistent group composed of the rest of their crewmates to approach. Nami watches her captain with amusement as he tries in vain to converse with a native. Though speaking with him is stretching it since Luffy can and will only say one word. Meat. Yeah, bring me some meat. Please? The rubber man scratches his head and pouts when the only answer the local is inclined to give him is a snort and a shake of the head with a few muttered words accompanying his departure that Luffy can't understand. Man. They don't know how to be friendly. I think it's your fault, shithead. Asking them for meat nonstop does that kind of thing to people. Sanji mumbles around his cigarette, wondering how he wasn't having adverse reactions at hearing that blasted word over and over again, thousands of times a week. Zoro said something about a ship. Where is it? Chopper looks around anxiously, but can't spot anything resembling one. So he decides to climb onto Frankie's steady shoulders for a better look and lets out a delighted squeal when he finally sees their ticket out of here. It's still far away, but it will come, Robin assures Chopper, patting his head. Yo-ho-ho, finally, we begin our adventure. Brook strums a few notes on his guitar jovially. Yeah, can't wait. Usopp only half jokes, wringing his hands anxiously. Thought this week was never going to end. I'm sure the capital will be super. Frankie can't contain his trademark yell in the reigning silence. He is sure that all his friends are as tense as he feels, but there is no reason to ponder over the unknown near future too much. It isn't their usual style and he finds himself surprised when not one, but most are talking plans and possibilities. This never happens aboard his precious Sunny and Frankie feels the need to somehow put them back on track. Leaving this place will be all kinds of beneficial. This aggravating waiting is even starting to wear on Luffy. Their steadfast captain has been seen more than once circling the shores, trying to keep too much pent-up energy and restlessness in check. Frankie lifts his sunglasses, scanning the horizon for the growing dot, daring it to take longer than needed to get here. Also, this doesn't mean he has to keep quiet while doing so. It is more fun rallying them up anyway. Let's hope that these people will be able to provide some answers. Frankie pauses at Zoro's low growl. He feels Usopp tense next to him and the shipwright sighs inwardly at the quite feral look the swordsman sports in this moment, but he cannot blame him. This situation has taken its toll on all of them no matter Frankie and Brook's efforts. Frankie only hopes he can keep Zoro in check. The ship that is supposed to get them to the capital is by no means small, but it differs greatly from the usual vessels the pirates are used to seeing. The wooden structure is built with a different technique than what is used in the future. It has a massive hull with 4 masts and the shipwright makes sure to point this out the first time its features become vaguely distinguishable. When it docks he inspects everything he can and finally decides, with a lot of grudging acknowledgement, that the ship meets his standards. But all in all, it floats so Nami has nothing to complain about. We wish to go to capital. Robin tries to hide the reflexive wince as she realizes that something is wrong with her sentence. The man in front of her has, at least, the decency to overlook her mistake. He studies them one by one, from Robin's smiling face before he moves to her companions. He assesses the strange vibes the whole crew is emanating, taking in their out-of-this-world clothing and colorful appearances and shapes that surely are a curious enough sight this early in history. Of course, Robin agrees hands down that history has really taught them nothing. So she is glad when the man doesn't seem to pursue the subject and just averts his eyes the minute his staring becomes uncomfortable. You are not from around here. His deep voice aside, the archaeologist wants to sigh in relief. This is a language she is familiar with and can understand better than the villagers' dialect. So her assumptions are correct about the time and place they've landed in. Now they only have to play this right and maybe the reason for their sudden time travel and the other lingering mysteries will be cleared in due time. Going back to the matter at hand. No, we found us in a strange place. I hope we will able to clear this in the capital. The man's eyebrows furrow and Robin knows she has to press further. Even in this time and age, things can be easily bought with money. We have money. Nami perks up at that and, rather reluctantly, extracts from her leather makeshift purse a small bag of gold coins. They learned during their stay that this is the currency of this time and so the Straw Hats have worked around the village every day, multiple jobs given to them by the chief to obtain this little amount of change. He is the only holder of this kind of mo itself doesn't use trade with money locally. The sailor takes the pouch and counts the coins calmly before he seems to make up his mind. Robin blinks when 10 coins are returned into her hand. This will do. Come aboard. Nami does not hesitate to take hold of the remaining money with large eyes full of glistening tears while the rest of her friends fill onto the ship. Robin rubs her friend's back reassuringly before she feels the weight of someone's gaze. She looks up, noting with surprise that it was the village leader. She supposes that he has done a great deal for them in this short time, so she knows that gratitude is in order. Thank you for everything. The old man nods stoically, but does not return her wave. Make sure your efforts are not wasted this time around either. Good luck. Robin frowns at his words, but she does not have time to press the matter further because Nami is already pulling her by the hand and onto the departing vessel. Robin's lips are taut when her captain finds her standing by herself at the railing. "What's up, Robin?" Luffy asks curiously, seeing the troubled face. Usually the woman reserves that expression when something truly strange and logic-defying happens and she isn't the one doing it. The archaeologist shakes her head, 1,000 questions passing through her mind but not having enough answers to produce one for her captain. "It's nothing." Luffy raises an eyebrow, but doesn't prod his friend any further. He watches the vast horizon stretch with a growing feeling of anticipation that matches his giddy smile in the face of this next grand adventure. Details such as how they got here and why, he decides, won't bother him anymore because Luffy now opts to concentrate on getting to know this world a little bit better. And when whatever is designated to happen will happen, he won't let it get in his way. That's what he promises the waves lapping against the hull as he watches the orange sun shrink leisurely beneath the waves, swallowed by the fiery waters of the ocean. Whichever ocean this is. Nami hesitated at the shocked look the sailor is offering her. He looks as if he is genuinely surprised that she can even speak in the first place. She knows the word, but she feels so crippled, not knowing how to speak this strange language and having doubts at each interaction that she will not be able to understand more than a few simple sounds at a time. But anyways, the navigator has to try if only to smother the overwhelming curiosity gnawing incessantly away at her. Because damn her and her curious personality. This request is the simplest and most rudimentary one in her line of work and she'll lie if she'd say that she was not dying to know about it. Ever since they've been strapped here. Map? Maybe because he is still shocked with her sudden sound-making ability or because she is damn intimidating. The man that seems to be barely 3 years older than her looks. And her mind suggests as she shifts from foot and foot that he might be the one with the problem. After 2 minutes that seem like years, he raises an eyebrow and considers her squirming form in return for a few more unnerving moments in which Nami wants nothing more than to yell for Robin's help. But she bites her lip at the last second, knowing that they, some way or another, have to find a way to communicate in cases like these by themselves. Not only rely on Robin's albeit wider expertise in this area. The archaeologist already has enough on her plate as it is. If her drooping shoulders basically every other moment of the day are anything to go by. At long last, the shaggy-haired guy nods and leaves to search for a map, presumably. Nami taps her foot impatiently and hopes that he didn't leave her standing like an idiot in the middle of the deck for real. Blood will be spilled in that case, with or without knowing what he is screaming about. Nami sighs in relief when she spots him making his way back to her position, an old-looking piece of parchment in hand. She inhaled sharply when it is placed on the barrel in front of her and moves with trembling fingers to unroll it. "What do you plan on doing with that map, young lady?" Nami screeches and almost drops the map on the planks when an old, short woman pops up from the other side of the makeshift table, eyeing her with the most suspicious pucker of the lips the navigator has ever seen. And she has been a pirate and a scourge for long enough now. Her eyes widen to disbelieving proportions at the unimpressed, stern-looking lady wearing a pair of large, round glasses and white hair tied up in a crisp bun. She looks so out of place on this ship, but somehow still fits in readily. It looks like she is waiting for an answer to whatever question has startled Nami earlier, but the navigator didn't catch a word of it. "Nami, are you alright?" Robin's breathless inquiry seems to give the strange lady all the answers she needs, but Nami could care less as she catches Robin's arm in a death grip and swears to never let go. "Strangers, huh?" She speaks more for her own benefit, though Robin nods anyway. She just wished to look. The old woman waves a hand in dismissal. Yes, I figured that out. It's fine," she announces loudly to basically no one but the two of them, her eyes fixed on Nami's still disturbed form. "You can look," she adds deliberately slow. The orange head purses her lips, trying in vain not to bristle at the tone of voice, but finally understands the message. This old bat is looking down on her. Of course she should have seen that coming. She feels like a goddamn toddler, with no way to make herself understood even though there is a language she can speak. Nami knows that she'd be fighting a losing battle if she tries to argue. Toddler language against crazy stuff from the Void Century. Go figure. This is our navigator. She wanted to know who wanted the map. The sailor from earlier feels the need to explain himself, seeing as the Strowit's own navigator is already pinning him under an accusing stare. Nami exhales, swallowing her nerves and pointedly choosing to ignore the stare of the old woman as she works to smooth out the map and take a good look at it. What she finds has her eyes widening and her mind screeches to a halt for a second there, because this just couldn't freaking be, and let's be serious. But this wide, fucked up world has convinced her that things can go either way at any second. Since it hasn't blown up by now in their timeline, she has let herself believe that nothing quite like what they have encountered can possibly bring about this sort of rapture in their reality. Maybe she is being overly dramatic, but Nami guesses that maybe the world has already blown up right around now, because this wasn't right. It couldn't have been right. Even if they got sent 500 years into the past, this couldn't have been slightly right. Not for this over-the-top, flipped-around world. Not in what she used to call their world. WW. The word lodged inside her throat doesn't want to come out, and it's all for the better, a cynical part of her still-working brain believes. Robin bites her lip, trying hard not to give in to the tidal wave of desperation, because Nami needs her as moral support and she can't do that to her. But even the usually clear-minded former assassin is having a hard time believing that this is the place called home in the future. Not knowing what to do, she calls out the first name to roll on her tongue. Chopper. The small reindeer has been exploring the strange ship's deck ever since they embarked, but pauses at the strange tone Robin has spoken in and follows it upwards in surprise. The dark-haired woman is supporting Nami's shivering form, though she does not seem to be doing too well herself. Mind already whirling, the zone user enters his doctor mode automatically. What's the matter, Robin? Do you need a doctor? Is Nami okay? Robin waves the string of questions away and answers shakily. I need you to call everyone over here, please. Chopper blinks, but nods nonetheless and sprints away to inform their friends. You look positively horrified, the old woman comments absently, judging them behind her gray, judgy eyes. Nami's mind sneers. Why? Robin's smile is awfully sour. It a shock. Why? The old navigator repeats her question as if just asking it will unlock some goddamn secret treasure chest. Nami would have known if this was the case. The archaeologist chooses not to respond this time around and studies instead the lines of the map, trying to memorize everything she can. Nami Swan, Robin Schwan. Sanji's shout breaks her concentration. The cook is watching them with clear-written concern under his usual full facade. His stare manages to snap Nami out of her shocked stupor. What happened? Frankie bows over the group, looking at the map over their heads. Something wrong with the map. Lots of things are wrong with the map. Nami rasps, slamming her palm next to the piece of paper and successfully attracting everyone's attention. Can you read it to us, Miss Nami? I'm afraid I don't understand everything there. Brooke says softly, though he still manages to scare the crap out of the two standing on the other side of the barrel. Nami sighs in frustration and ruffles her already disheveled locks. You see this? She jabs a finger at two jagged sets of parallel lines drawn vertically in the middle of the map, spread further apart. Luffy agrees as he rubs his chin in deep thought. This, Nami's index finger contours the mass of land covering what is supposed to be half of East Blue in their time. This isn't in our world. The echo of her exclamation leaves the colorful group in a grim silence, but the navigator can't be bothered by it. She is on a roll now. This land is connected to the red line itself. Well, it doesn't look too solid judging by the jagged lines that indicate possible ruptures of the land, but even so, how can it be? And there are no islands, look. The Straw Hats eye their navigator warily. She seems to be so into it that she forgets of moments there. Chopper unknowingly releases a sigh in relief when he hears air whooshing out of Nami's nose. But it looks, Zoro points at a few circular masses thrown like random dots on the ocean. Okay, there are a couple of them. Nami grunts. She moves her finger downwards to South Blue. This is the almost same. And North and West Blue, too. But where is the Grand Line then? Zoro insists impatiently. He crosses his arms, index finger tapping his forearm restlessly. It isn't marked with anything. The orange-haired woman stops and starts mumbling to herself. What she's saying, only Nami herself knows. What see? This? The foreign words leaving Zoro's mouth take them all by surprise, but the small, old woman seems more indignant than perturbed. She watches Zoro from under the thick, black rim of her glasses and she seems to ponder if he is really worth giving an answer to. Most of all, she raises an eyebrow at the rudimental way of speaking, but grudgingly approves that they at least know a little of the language. Though it seems at various degrees and only that black-haired woman knows it best, but credit goes where it's deserved. The old navigator's mouth pulls taut, not liking the strange group and their out-of-nowhere appearance on her boat. It is best they are left alone, especially after seeing the Orangehead's reaction to finding out what the old woman feels that is general information. Even for someone that has lived under a rock in the capital, these kids look the part. So why are they acting like surprised maggots when even provincials from the outer rim, like the village they were picked from, would not find this so earth-shattering? But she also knows that whatever their business here is, they are now traveling under her care. Actually, she has heard that strange language before, and now whenever they speak it, it reminds her of dangerous lands and bad people. Dark places and overcast skies filled with smoke and ash from 1,000 burning corpses and trees. Most of all, though, it's the haunting vibes that would never stop bothering her for the rest of her life. Even so, she decides that answering will be the best option in this case. Their faces are as white as the clouds on the sky and most look on the verge of passing out, which will not be beneficial when there isn't any real doctor aboard. She'd hate another death at sea to be on her hands. This is the Grand Blue, the one and only sea of this world. It takes Nami 2 days to calm down and analyze the situation from an objective point of view. In that time, their ride passes swiftly through what should be the calm belt and enters the hypothetical Grand Line, making full speed towards the New World. Or where the New World should be. Though if any of them had any doubts that this is the same sea they have been traveling on until a short while ago, the often Sea King's attacks and very rare, but still certainly there, illogical behavior of the weather convinces them otherwise quickly, which is a short-lived relief. Unfortunately, it rapidly becomes a presence that serves to remind them of their own time, which to Nami seems like a far, far away dream even after such a brief span of time. And it makes her want to cry whenever the treacherous thought sneaks inside her mind. "Nami-san, are you hungry?" Sanji startles her from her latest and depressive trail of thought. Light brown eyes glance up in quiet surprise at the soft smile the blonde is displaying, and her stomach doesn't hesitate to growl pointedly. It seems so. The navigator giggles quietly as she gratefully accepts the bun and small cooked fish. It isn't one of Sanji's most amazing masterpieces, but it will have to do. She barely remembers the last time she ate. "I'm glad to see that you're back, Nami Swan." In all honesty, she should have expected this kind of reaction. But she is still surprised at how calm Sanji was when he said it. This act in itself signals that something is on the cook's mind, and Nami has no qualms about asking, desperately wishing to escape her own muddled head for a little while. "Something wrong, Sanji-kun?" the Orangehead asks nonchalantly as she shoves a third of the bun in her mouth. Her gaze never strays from the blonde, and she watches Sanji's lips tighten into an ironic upturn. "I suppose it's the same thing that's been keeping you occupied for 2 whole days," he says. "Robin-chan has been fighting a losing battle with the old woman. She wouldn't show the map to us anymore." Nami's mouth goes taut as she considers his words. A part of her really wants to inspect it further, but the other screams and trashes that it wants nothing to do with it anymore. She wishes more than anything to call this all just a bad dream and pinch herself on the arm until she wakes up. But it won't work, of course. Nami may be a dreamer, but she isn't delusional. She can only continue to hope. Heaving a shaky sigh, she munches on the rest of her meal quickly, unmindful of Sanji's advices to slow it down, and stands up when she is finished. She pats away the dust on her jeans and glares at the shining disk on the sky with more determination than she had just 10 minutes ago. "Nami-san, mind helping me convince that stubborn crone?" Nami grins slyly, and the cook mirrors her expression after a second's hesitation. "It will be my absolute pleasure," Sanji intones in obvious delight as he shakes a cigarette from his pack and lights it up in one fluid motion that always managed to impress Nami. The cook considers his choice to take a new package before disembarking on No Name Island has been his best one yet. The duo maneuvers easily around the working sailors, spotting some of their friends along the way as they direct steady steps towards the main cabin's doors. Nami does not hesitate to knock on the weathered wood 3 loud times before she takes a step back and crosses her arms, her foot automatically starting to tap an impatient rhythm on the ground. Her mental count is at 86 seconds when the old woman decides to throw the door open, face as unconcerned as ever. Her eyebrows draw up though, when she spots Nami's narrowed eyes and pursed lips. "What is it now, girl? Haven't you had enough of moping around?" Nami mostly understands the first part, but only catches a whiff of the main idea in the second. The question is, at least, one that she can answer. "I see map again. Please." There is no answer as she has feared. She might have to start begging with gestures because she doesn't want to risk saying stupid things besides the word, please. But Sanji chooses that moment to intervene. "Please, Miss Zara." The cook insists politely and Nami doubles back at the form of address for which the old woman, Zara, apparently, rewards him with her attention. It is important. "Why? What else do you want to see?" The older navigator asks catatonically. "Haven't you already seen enough?" Sanji's eyebrow pulses, a sure sign that he is struggling to keep up with the sudden accelerated rhythm of conversation, and Nami can sympathize with him on that matter. But otherwise he appears nonplussed by the words coming out of the old navigator's mouth. "Then you explain, please." The orange head decides to tackle the subject another way. "About islands and map." Sanji helpfully includes his 2 cents and Nami applauds inside her mind for their collaborative creativity. It seems that he has practiced speaking the language and got even better than her during her short seclusion from the world. Zara takes a minute to make her decision. Rubbing her temples, she turns to re-enter her room. "Gather your friends then." Sanji grins victoriously and Nami winks at him before dashing around the deck in search of the others with the cook hot on her heels. "This," Zara begins, pointing to the irregular mass of land where the blues are supposed to be, continents. "Continents." Robin translates for the benefit of those not knowing the word. The old woman purses her lips at the horrid language, but does nothing to reprimand her. "This is the only contours the water. That is the Grand Blue, the only sea. What is this?" Zara's gray eyes barely acknowledge Robin's pointing finger, tracing it towards their Times Reverse mountain. "We call it the Gate. The capital has carved passages through it and created a way for ships like ours to enter the other parts of the Grand Blue. Of course, the Continentals did not like it too much. Been having wars with them over it for centuries." "What did she say, Robin?" Chopper asks curiously, having trouble understanding everything even after looking through Robin's notes. "They call Reverse Mountain the Gate, and apparently the capital has created it to allow ships to travel to the other blues, I suppose. There was something about a war with people from the continent." The archaeologist taps her chin silently before another thought occurs to her. "Are there islands, too?" Zara scoffs. "Of course, but not many are known or are too important." She moves her finger to punctuate along the ocean. "The Kingdom of Alabasta, Shandora, Wano, Dressrosa. Waters 7 and the capital itself." Her finger pats an acculation of islands drawn as little, scattered circles, but otherwise unmarked. Others are either not inhabited or discovered yet. "Waters 7? Frankie chokes from the back, clutching Robin's journal like a lifeline. Zara's eyes don't lose any time in fixing him up with a glacial beam. That the name, blue hair. Maybe that's how they call it in this time. Usopp lifts his shoulders in a shrug, trying to offer a little support at the curious name. Why that name? The old woman hesitates, apparently judging if the long-nosed kid is an idiot or has really been living under a very uninformative rock. Sadly, neither is true. Water's 7 docks. The city has 7 docks and it's built on water. The intended duh makes Usopp wonder if the word would sound the same in the ancient language. Robin bites her lip when she sees her theory proved true right before her eyes. And she isn't sure if she would rather weep with joy or remain thoroughly disappointed. This wasn't how I wanted to find out about this. If I am to be completely honest. The black-haired woman releases an airy laugh devoid of any amusement that successfully confuses her crewmates. Did she say anything else, Robin? Frankie prods gently, hoping to not upset the archaeologist further, but wanting to know if anything about his home city was added. I only caught the names. She was listing islands, right? Zoro doesn't seem to mind the subdued atmosphere. And then something about Water 7's name or whatever. He crosses his arms, brow furrowed in concentration. The swordsman isn't exactly sure if the countries on the list are the only ones remaining or not. Or the only ones that exist at the moment, though this particular thought does not sit right with him. Yes. Robin agrees softly. At this point, There are only these 5 islands. Others are not discovered or inhabited, so they didn't write them down. Also, she was pointing toward the capital just now. Oh, and what has you so worked up then? Luffy asks bluntly, basically confused why this is such a big deal and partly concerned about his friend's gray face. One corner of Robin's mouth pulls upwards. Because I was right. Shandora being called Shandora means that we have been sent back to the Void Century. The historian turns around to face her friends and extends her arms in an un-Robin-like gesture. This capital being here means that we've been sent more than 900 years into the past. Usopp swallows heavily, past the lump in his throat, past the sickness he knows he was coming down with since it was only a matter of time. And now past the uncharacteristic way Robin is eyeing them. As if she thinks that she is dreaming. At some point, he manages to croak, "Ni 900? Damn." Zoro clicks his tongue, decidedly not in the mood. He wonders if there is any alcohol to be stolen from under the deck. That means that this is the ancient language and we are now heading towards the capital. So we should expect to see many differences to our own world. Robin nods as she speaks and Nami resists the urge to rub her temples. If this is her friend's way of having a breakdown, she would have been decidedly happier with anything relating to crying and shouting. Hell, suicidal thoughts all the way. But an out-of-character Robin is too creepy to not give anyone nightmares. Damn. They always manage to get into the worst situations without any visible way out. Her questions more or less answered, the navigator turns towards Zara with a small smile. Thank you for help. The orange head recites the word out of Robin's little notebook. It has become their one and only dictionary in this apparent past. Zara nods and rolls up the map, departing without another word. So, Brook begins, looking to be debating whether a song would be appropriate in this situation or not. What do we do now? Go to the fucking capital and find some damn answers. Zoro roars, his temple twitching visibly. Many men stop and throw him irritated glares over their shoulders while others simply wish to see what the green-haired stranger is so worked up about now. Sanji clears his throat and jabs him in the small of his back. It thankfully seems to do the trick. I second that. Usopp nods fervently, half hidden behind his swordsman friend now that he isn't in homicidal mood anymore. I suppose it's the best bet we have. Frankie lifts his sunglasses on his forehead, watching his crewmates' half shouts of agreement. Come on, you guys. Luffy complains loudly. When he knows he got their attention, he allows his usual wide, confident grin to overcome his features. This is an adventure. We should have fun, too. Chopper sniffs, but readily agrees. There is no point in arguing with Luffy anyway. Yo-ho-ho. Luffy-san really knows how to lighten the mood, Brook hums, feeling pumped up for the road ahead. At least someone has to be. It takes only 4 more days until they arrive at the Red Line and, consequently, to their time Sabaody archipelago. But there is nothing there to be seen but a relatively small patch of trees. They are half the size of the Yarukaman mangroves they are used to encountering and look like they offer no shelter. There's certainly no island underneath their branches. Only bare roots and the ocean. A few ships are in sight, but then again, ships have always been in sight ever since their ship entered deeper waters. None of them even remotely resemble a pirate one. Rather, the locals who own them are busy fishing just like Luffy, Usopp and Chopper are doing after having robbed some poor sailors of 3 fishing rods. The trio is busy making funny faces at the people on the other boat that floats closely to theirs while the rest of the crew is relaxing near the railing. Water 7 is the place where Pluton was constructed, Robin recounts slowly and Frankie nods behind her in silent agreement. And then it was shipped off to Alabasta. She stops, flips another 3 pages. Technically. But there was no mention on the poneglyph about Pluton's whereabouts in Alabasta the last time we've been there. What? The shipwright's jaw falls at the news, so it didn't tell you anything about it. No details as far as I'm concerned. It has been only mentioned in passing. The real information is still out there somewhere. Brown eyes glint in the sun's rays. Now closer than ever, it seems. I wonder what this capital is all about. Nami mumbles distractedly, making air quotes with her fingers and noticing with a prayer of thanks that Robin is back to her usual self. The better question would be what we'll be doing there when we arrive. Sanji exhales a cloud of smoke, stubbing his consumed cigarette on the railing he is leaning up against. He makes a mental note to beg tobacco selling places out of Zara. We have 0 clues and now there's important we are careful not to stand out. The blonde trails off, eyes his friends and promptly reformulates his earmunch. The even better question would be how do we get to the new world? Usopp leans back to stare at them all, only to receive blank stares in return. What, am I the only one who thought about that? When only blank stares greet him again, the sniper fights hard not to lose it. Come on guys. Sanji-kun is right, but Usopp's words are worrying me. Though I believe that Fishman Island must be still here. Or at least some form of it. Robin gazes at the commotion around the deck with interest. The ship has slowed down noticeably in the last hour or so and they are now floating through the calm waters, heading straight for the dark red mass of rock towering over them imperiously. Let's begin, boys. Zara appears on deck then, her eyes scanning the crowd of fully equipped sailors critically. Most are holding barrels and buckets along with large brushes and cloths in their hands. Her critical gaze stops on the Straw Hats and the old woman opens her mouth to reprimand them. You kids stay out of the way. Got it? Most nods with the exception of Luffy. He still doesn't understand any of her words. Is lunch ready? The captain asks as he wrestles with a fish his size. No one answers him. Instead, they watch as the workers move as one, starting to apply a sticky substance to various parts of the ship. They are coating it. Please tell me they are coating it. Frankie whispers in awe with a hint of fear, watching the men work carefully, but efficiently. So we're going under like usual. Zoro is glad that at least this is something they're familiar with. I wonder how long this will take. Chopper rubs his cheek, his bright eyes more interested in the current proceedings on the vessel than his latest catch. Chopper, it's pulling. Only Frankie has been around the Sunny when it was coated before and he is honestly surprised by how little it takes the sailors to finish the job. Granted, the last time there has only been one fishman to the job with small help from the cyborg when Den allowed it. These guys' collective effort took half an hour and by then the Straw Hat Pirates have already caught 2 big fish and a smaller one that were to be served for dinner later in the day. Robin and Nami, the newly formed Annoy Zara tag team, as the woman herself put it, have been pestering the old navigator with various questions about the nature of their next part of the journey, but have been left with barely a grumbled out response in return. This has them stuck with even more curious inquiries. For the moment though, they've been assured that their underwater journey will be taking only half a day at most, after which there is a 5 days journey to the capital if the winds are in their favor. If her calculations are correct, Nami concludes that the islands they're sailing toward can't be too far into the new world. Or maybe it's because the weather isn't so abruptly changing and so they're going at full speed. The revelation only manages to bring about horror and she spends the next few minutes moaning and groaning because of the unfairness. Sanji takes it upon himself to solve the upcoming issues of their arrival and speaks to Zara about the port they are going to dock at. He finds himself surprised at how willing the old crone is to tell him all about it. But either way, the cook brushes it off and concentrates on catching everything she is saying, gritting his teeth when he sees that she is slowing down and using simpler terms intentionally. Sanji swallows his frustration and nods along. By the end of his little chat, he has acquired enough information to formulate a good strategy for the visit on the main island of the so-called capital. As last-minute preparations are being done, Sanji returns to his friend's side, ignoring their burning stares full of curiosity. We'll talk after we sink, he explains briefly, wondering how strange that sentence really sounded. Barely a minute later, 3 fishmen and 1 merman surface on opposite sides of the ship. They exchange a few rushed words with Zara before another middle-aged sailor starts tying thick ropes on the masts and railings. What those for, Zara? Frankie asks, excited as he gives a helping hand in tightening the knot on the foremast. The old woman raises an eyebrow, but decides to humor him. For those who will carry us. She indicates in the water's direction where 2 large, multicolored fins are protruding its surface. She smirks at Frankie's impressed whistle. Everyone grab onto something and keep tight. We don't want to have our friends here run back in vain for your stupid asses. Zara's voice reverberates over the deck and, as one, everyone clings to anything glued to the ship. Make sure you guys keep an eye on Luffy and the others, alright? Nami shouts over her shoulder, bracing for something like an impact to come. But there was none. But is it going to be fine? Usopp is glancing around nervously. The water level is past their heads now. We've been sinking for a while now. Yes, ever since they finished with the coating. Robin agrees, prompting the sniper to release an undignified shriek. I don't know what they did, but the rate of sinking was so slow, it was barely noticeable. Maybe it has to do with the mass of the ship? Brook proposes, double-checking his hold on the railing. I don't sink if I run fast on water. You mean to say that this ship's extremely light? Frankie asks from behind Luffy's wild tuft of hair. The shipwright has one of his massive hands wrapped around their hyperactive captain, keeping his struggling form in place. Could be, seeing as we've got here in, 4 days? Zoro guesses, lounging on the ground and entirely too unconcerned. It took 6, you stupid algae brain. Sanji grunts from his side and receives the stink eye in return. But I agree with the idiot. It can be one of the reasons. No one has time to offer anything else. The ship suddenly lurches forward and sinks the rest of the way into the water. A wave of nostalgia and wonder hits Nami as she takes in the underwater landscape once more and its array of different life forms. She is also able to take a good look at the large creatures pulling the ship. There is a sea king with pale green skin with colorful dots are splotched all over its body that is guiding their ride from the front, while another one swims by next to him. The beasts are very tame with the fishmen handling them and their kin is avidly avoiding the vessel at all costs. This is new. Chopper confesses, looking all around them with wide eyes. Usually they won't hesitate to attack ships. Yeah. Seems like these guys know what they're doing. Usopp agrees, tapping his fingers on the wooden floor nervously. I wonder why everyone's still latched to the ship, though. Probably as a safety measure. Frankie concludes. We should take their example and do so as well. He added mostly for the benefit of his impatient captain still struggling in his hold. Luffy only huffs and crosses his arms. Now you better start spewing, stupid cook. Zoro blurts out, eye narrowed on the back of the man's head, daring him to argue. What did that hag say to you? Sanji sighs, knowing he has landed in the middle of them for that very reason. Alright, don't get your panties in a twist, algae. Now that he has their attention, Sanji continues. So I asked her about the city mostly. What we can find there and who we can talk to about some important stuff. She finally told me at some point, but first insisted I know about the islands themselves. He stops, feeling the desperate need for a cigarette, but doesn't want to risk the old crone's wrath by lighting it up underwater and having her yell at him that he'll set fire to everything. It won't be the first time, either. Seeing as no one is planning to interrupt his monologue, the cook continues on, swiftly recalling the shocking next bit he is about to relay. The main island of this capital where we'll be docking on is named Raftel. What? Nami's shout makes even the Sea Kings turn their way, but icily covered by a series of unintelligible stammering from the others, culminated by Chopper's strangled yelp. Sanji sees Usopp's face gradually lose all color so that it is in the end as pale as a sheet of paper. Frankie whistles again in that annoyingly unconcerned manner of his that makes the cook want to deck him for being so stupidly unimpressed with anything they stumble upon. Especially the goddamn island that has sparked so many legends in their time and caused everyone to lose their shit in minds over. For which they would trade a civilian life for something resembling an endless and futile search. Brook releases a nervous laugh that seems more in tone with the problem here and Sanji approves and turns his head to see Robin's taut mouth and Zoro's shuttered expression. It's rewarded with a glare from the cook because why does he have to be so damn unexpressive when there is the obvious issue at hand and is he the only one at least a bit concerned about it? Luffy simply continues to regard him calmly, urging the story on. Which gives Sanji all the thumbs down needed to know that his captain either isn't buying it or is slowly coming to the conclusion that things won't go his way this time around. The four surrounding it are Poseidon, Pluton, Uranus and Atlantis, Fishman Island, in our time. So they are named after the three ancient weapons. Robin stops abruptly, eyes going wide before she bursts out laughing. But then again, of course they are. Nami clears her throat uncomfortably at the exclamation. And Fishman Island seems to be on the surface. It's kind of great, actually. Usopp flashes a wavering smile full of dashing hope and Sanji, heart heavy, inwardly prepares to destroy it. This means that the city before us is just a small settlement then, no? Brook would smile, had he possessed muscles to do so. Heads turn just in time to see the first coral roofs rise in the large air bubble. There are noticeably fewer houses than the Fishman Island they know, but this is only expected of such an early settlement. There is little agitation inside the city, but their guides carefully avoid it by swimming around the bubble full of air. The pirates use this chance to study the small crowds, so familiar yet full of strangers. I suggest we admire the sights for now, Brooke says, hoping to share in the thirst for adventure. Yo-ho-ho. 5 long days that seem to stretch on endlessly later, and the time travelers conclude that Zara has not, in fact, lied to them. In front of their very eyes, sprawled on the horizon, Raftel's high stone buildings and towers spiral into the clouds over the island as they come into view, competing with one another in height and architectural design. After the initial shock, the crew's expectant gazes settle on the approaching port, lined with merchant vessels and civilian fishing boats alike, that creates a solid fence for the city limits. This is something else, Robin says, breathless all of a sudden as the others disembark behind her. The archaeologist glances up and down the wide street, to the unique decorations hanging on houses and stalls that consist of flags, lanterns and an array of exotic and colorful flower arrangements. Finally, Robin looks to the mass of cleanly cut marble and stone of the large palace sprawling not far out in front of them. It feels so gigantic against the ordinary buildings, and in turn makes Robin feel so small in comparison. It's. Nami trails off, light brown eyes impossibly wide and sparkling with the usual reflection of money as one hand covers her mouth in shock. It's made of gold. The navigator's shout echoes down the street, attracting a few confused stares. Usopp offers them sheepish smiles and a small wave in return, and, luckily, the citizens carry on with their business. It falls on Sanji, as it is, to thank Zara and the sailors for getting them there, but if it is for sweet Robin Schwan and Nami Swan, the cook will do it without grumbling too much. And so, after learning this convenient combination of words from the magical little notebook of one of his objects of affection, he decides to get this over with. "We thank you for the help," and the blonde bows to the small woman to add effect. Zara scoffs and inclines her head jerkily. "You kids better not cause trouble around here." "Yes, now get lost." Zoro chuckles as he sees the stupid cook manhandled by the old hag. "I'm glad it was so funny to you, stupid water caricature freak." The cook grumbles as he takes out a cigarette from his rapidly emptying pack and curses. He forgot to ask Zara about it, as he should have. He inwardly hopes that he'll be able to find some tobacco around here, since it seems like a rich city, especially judging by how everything sparkles in the sunlight. Sanji's feet draw to a stop as the man himself gapes like a fish out of water. "What? Look at this. Look," Luffy shouts, jumping up and down in the middle of the street. "It's all gold." "Oh my god, it really is," Usopp exclaims from his spot next to the nearest building, touching it with overwhelming reverence that borders on something less healthy. "It seems like Shandora wasn't the only city of gold." Robin smiles with bemusement at the crew's antics. "Yow, bro. How many berry do you think a single house here makes?" Frankie rubs his chin and smirks as his businessman side takes charge. "More than 10 million for sure." Nami screeches obscenely loud again, her eyes definite berry signs and knees shaking. The navigator looks like she could melt into a puddle at any given moment because of the luminescent sight of so much precious metal splayed right in front of her. "Really?" Chopper's jaw hangs open and the reindeer hugs the nearest statue of gold that he finds in his path with a white-knuckled grip. "Come on, stop fucking around." Zoro scowls. Eye narrowed at the too relaxed attitude of the others. They are in enemy territory, damn it. "Yo-ho-ho. I believe it will be better if we'd find a change of clothes first," Brooke proposes, walking with hunched shoulders in the hope that not too many people will notice his ghastly appearance. Of course, that is a futile wish since his height is outstanding on its own. But many luckily assume that it is a costume. "I can see a large variation in clothing styles," the musician points out from his vantage point. Zoro wants to groan at the sight. The skeleton is right. The clothes are totally different and he is certainly not looking forward to put such things on. Some are different, probably signaling that there are natives of other cultures visiting the island. He spots a few Alabastion outfits and others that would belong to Wano, judging by the samurai-styled clothing. There are also normal ones in the sea of white in color, But of course the Straw Hat Pirates won't go for normal. They have to go for more than normal, so the completely abnormal will be covered expertly. Sanji finally snaps out of his fit of admiration for Nami and Robin and straightens as he clears his throat. Brook's right. Our first stop is a shop with clothes. The cook announces to the audience in general and grabs Luffy by the scruff of his vest. He gestures Usopp and Chopper to detach themselves off the golden objects they are holding onto lest they get arrested for being too weird for this timeline. They are being the two obvious outsiders in this moment, and the blonde is starting to feel self-conscious. Zara showed me the general direction the nearest shop is in, so we should leave before someone decides we are too out of place and does something about it. Zoro raises an eyebrow at the tense posture of the idiot, but bites his tongue. He doesn't like agreeing with the guy on principle, but he is right this instance. They end up going the wrong way 2 times, and it isn't because of Zoro, shockingly. The third try as the charm and the pirate crew finally find themselves standing in front of a large shop's entrance. It is decorated with colorful lanterns and garlands hang from its roof and over their heads in a mildly irritating equally as cheerful, and it smells of lily perfume and incense. Are you sure this is a shop for men, too? Zoro grounds through his teeth, watching Robin and Nami converse about a dress they've found through the folded materials. Another look and the swordsman knows that there are only dresses in here. Yes, I'm freaking positive. Sanji growls back. Now shut up and go find some rag to wear. We don't have money for you, too. The swordsman rolls his eyes and mouths sarcastically. Enough only for Nami and Robin, of course. Of course, algae. Sanji replies and sticks out his tongue, though he is distracted from a possible stare-off with said water plant when the salesgirl approaches them with a hesitant smile and a skip in her step. How may I be of help to you? Robin intervenes before Sanji can begin bewitching in another language. We search for suitable clothes to wear. The brown-haired woman nods in understanding and helps select garments for everyone. The process is a little tedious and seems complex at first sight since there isn't any scale of measurement besides the naked eye. This coupled with some of the more unwilling ones, and it is way past noon when the crew had barely managed to cover half of its members. Needless to say, there isn't only Zoro in the disgruntled club, but Usopp and Frankie too. The trio isn't willing enough to wear those long dresses, considered unmanly. But they do not have a choice in the end because Robin, Nami and Sanji working together proved to hold a little too much persuasive power over them. In complete contrast, Brook seems totally content with the way his new white attire covers his bony body and makes it so much easier to pass off as normal. He combined it with a black scarf wound around his neck high enough to cover up to his nose, and his hat hangs low over his eyes. Now the musician can easily say that he is artfully camouflaged. Chopper uses the same method to cover his furry body as much as he can while keeping his hat on and hoping that his antlers will appear to be part of it. He spins around in a circle and grins happily, watching his white toga and blue embroidered shawl covering it swish with each movement. Nami gets herself an outfit not unlike the one she has worn in Alabasta. The only difference is the large, orange-flowered shawl wrapped around her waist and draped over one shoulder that hides her midnight blue bra and exposed back. The navigator was hesitant to cover herself up in this heat, but the salesgirl warned her about walking around in only that. Even if she is an Alabastian, it was advisable to wear it because of the sudden bouts of rain the rainfall season often brings. So Nami consented to the beautiful shawl in the end. Usopp is standing in place awkwardly, not feeling up to walking around or even breathing as a matter of fact. He still doesn't understand why he can't keep his pants on underneath, even though he will probably die of overheat. The others look pretty happy with their dresses, but the sniper doesn't feel extremely comfortable without his pants. The cream-colored toga and yellow and brown shawl are a nice touch, and they certainly appeal to his artistic side. He has to hand it to the shopkeeper. She has chosen colors based on his former clothes well. He is also forced to reconsider his earlier thoughts when he discovers the amazing inner function of hiding his satchel behind the shawl without it appearing to be anything there. These long clothes aren't that bad, and this definitely awards the garments points in the sniper's book. In the end, Usopp opts to just watch in amusement as Luffy bounces around in his new acquisition. Their captain is grinning widely, whirling in place continuously as he tries to make his own white toga and flaming red shawl fly along with Chopper's. His trusty straw hat is perched safely on his head, gaining the approval of his navigator and cook in style and color palette. Robin smiles down at her lavender dress and gold-embroidered shawl before her head lifts to watch Zoro and Frankie's protests with infinite amusement. She was surprised to see the shop having such a large tunic for their uniquely shaped shipwright, but the salesgirl surprised the archaeologist when she got one out for him to try on. It is white with blue embroideries and has a matching striped white and blue shawl over it. The color is slightly darker than his hair, but it matches well enough. Zoro, on the other hand, looks to be contemplating bloody murder under that green toga and white and red-lined embroidered shawl. The color is very close to that of his coat, so the archaeologist can't understand why he is being such a baby about it. It doesn't look too different from what you usually wear, Zoro. Robin knows that she is threading into dangerous territory, but she cannot help herself. The swordsman glowers at her, predictably furious. That was a long coat and this is a freaking dress. Check your eyes, woman. The black-haired historian grins teasingly and drapes a yellow veil over his head. This will go nicely with your hair. Hey, you better take Robin-chan's gift. It will hide your ridiculous locks, you know. Sanji snickers behind his yellow shawl as he exits the fitting cabin leisurely, sporting a white toga embroidered with golden stitching. Taking the bait right off the bat, Zoro plunges into another swear fest right on. How much? Nami asks, uncertainty creeping inside her chest. All these clothes are amazing, but she is afraid of the price they now have to pay. The salesgirl smiles sweetly and answers without much thought, these will be 30 pawns. The navigator raises an eyebrow at the surprisingly low price, but does not complain and hands her the money with a grateful smile as the others fill out of the shop. Her light brown gaze lingers on the discarded clothes they have been wearing until now, not sure if they should take them along, but considering they do not know the extent of their stay here, Nami supposes they are better left behind. Flashing another grateful smile to the brown-haired woman behind the counter, she turns around and follows her friends out into the street. Her mind flashes briefly to the small coins jiggling inside her bag and she takes one out curiously, flipping it on her palm. On one side of the golden coin is a circle with 4 large dots placed at its diameter points, with another, larger one right in the middle of them. Nami frowns in confusion at the simplistic and overly strange picture. There are a few small characters in the ancient language that she'll have to ask Robin about. But the image itself reminds her of the world government flag, even though it did not look like it at first glance. But then again, these might represent the archipelago they're in. Nami flips it to the other side and her eyes widen when she makes out a ship behind which there is a faded skull with a crown over its head. There are more ancient words on this side and her curiosity flares. Where should we go now? Brooke asks, walking at a leisure pace in front of Nami's distracted form. Robin raises an eyebrow at her approaching friend. She somehow seems out of breath, but her mind is clearly elsewhere. Can you read what's written on these? Robin nods at the simple request and accepts the golden coin thrust into her palm. Let's go eat, Luffy declares loudly, pumping a fist in the air. Usopp, Frankie and Chopper immediately agree with the idea, but Sanji is having none of it. Now wait a damn minute. The cook protests vehemently, even though starving is a big no-no in his books, too. We have no way to make money, so we've got no way of filling Luffy's bottomless hole. Understand? He eyes his captain pointedly, but it is the others who nod in his stead. Sanji sighs, left with no other choice but to follow. They move slowly through the crowds, trying to find a nice and cheap restaurant while also making sure Zoro doesn't get lost in the influx of people populating the streets. It is a nerve-wracking half an hour of Nami and Sanji inspecting different places are suitable enough, but most prove to be simply too high or low class or not fast enough when it comes to cooking a large variety of dishes in a short amount of time. In the end, their navigator has the mercy to announce that they will be stopping at a rather small establishment filled with cozy sofas and low tables. Everything looks nice without it being too expensive. It also offers a good side view of the palace, and the pirates are now able to inspect the large structure more conspicuously. It's big, Zoro observes, feeling an incoming headache as he drops in his proclaimed seat. And made of gold, too. Usopp adds with honest incredulity. He shifts his legs left and right, not sure how to arrange them under a dress, so he takes Nami's feminine example. Just how rich are these people? Very, if the gold houses are any hint. Sanji puffs out a smoke cloud, keeping his eyes fixed on the golden building glittering in the late afternoon sun. It only says, capital, and its amount. In this case it's 100 pawns. Robin relays the information to Nami, who thanks her and pockets the coin. This means, the navigator's eyes pin Luffy down with a merciless glare, that Sanji is right and you can't eat too much. Who knows how much an inn costs and we need to survive here, got it? The Raven head pouts, but he knows that his friends won't budge and, frankly, he understands why the situation is so dire. None of the money from their world work and it isn't like they had much of those with them either. And until they figure out how this world goes and why they are here in the first place, working is out of the question. So they should take care of the remaining amount for now. The captain nods grimly, surprising his crewmates with his mature way of responding. This went better than expected. The orange head whispers to no one, accepting the simple sheet of paper that composes the menu that their waitress handed to her with a smile. I can't read any of it. Yo ho ho, me neither, so what is our next move? Sanji-san, Brooke asks after the waitress takes her leave. The blonde startles out from his inspection of the building. He assesses his friends' expectant faces and licks his dry lips. Zara. Even she didn't know where we could talk about our, special situation. Did you tell her anything? Zoro interrupts, ready to gut the idiot if he had spilled anything. No, but she took a wild guess. The cook sighs in resigned defeat. And was she right? Frankie approaches carefully. Close enough to not be entirely comfortable. But anyway, he leans forward, resting his elbows on his knees. She only said that we might be able to find somebody who could help us if we go to the palace. She said to ask to speak with the head of science. Science then. Robin translates for everyone. Probably a department of some kind. There is something like that here? Usopp blurts in shock. Sanji gives him the stink eye, but does not make any effort in explaining the matter further. After we eat, I suggest we go see about that. The Straw Hats agree, faces grim and determined. That old woman really has it in for you. Giving you so much free info. Zoro can't help himself anymore and makes sure to couple his words with an appropriately teasing smirk and wiggling eyebrows that leave the cook itching to kill him and on the verge of gagging. At least I was useful for something, you ungrateful mossball. The blonde clicks his tongue and kicks Zoro's seat strong enough to inconspicuously move it a few inches, not in the mood to argue with the damn bastard. Instead, he focuses on the nice-looking lady shyly approaching their table to ask for the orders and beams like nothing happened. Zoro shakes his head, feeling that the day is not done making a fool out of them yet.